Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine. Today I'm here with another topic. Today I would like to talk a bit about a topic which again concerns relationship and communication. Have you ever met people who seem to be stubborn, a little, selfish, egoistic, distant, or not really caring and attendant? This might be perhaps the first impression we get from some people who behave in a certain way in communication or in their relationships. And we may feel that they may avoid, pull away, or literally not care about their partners or other people's needs, or about generally their surroundings and other people's lives. Well, according to my experience, a disconnected and self-oriented appearance or behavior can sometimes be about, a hidden form for an opposite mechanism or internalization of an experience like helplessness and disappointment, because they had probably shown up much and cared and tried to be vulnerable several times before, but they found it very difficult. And this does not necessarily about a firmly established personality type or characteristic. I have thought a lot about this one. Sometimes people may internalize an external idea about themselves and start acting and living that role or interpretation intactly perfect, and then it becomes a very natural part of their interpersonal functioning. What if their manner is kind of, learned response, which has been shaped during recent years? Because in many cases, tendencies which may have a very hardly, ingrained characteristic may get shape within an almost short period of time, and not necessarily over so long time of exposure or during childhood. This holds true especially in marriage and close relationship. By learned process, I mean that our nervous system can also learn that showing up as an honest, open, vulnerable person will lead to some unpleasant consequences and feelings like, punishment, like rejection. That is so unfortunate, but this is much more common than we can imagine, unfortunately. In many destructive relationships, which everything is apparently, going well, and the requirements for a good relationship look to be, at the place and present, this type of dynamic may happen by which one partner will unconsciously associate being vulnerable and connected to his or her inner world with being too much, with being insufficient. For example, you might have been alone and waiting for your partner to come back home, and during this waiting time, you think that when he or she is back, I will hug him or tell her my day's story, or we will have a very cozy night together. And you just think, I really need to connect and express my feelings and thoughts about something, or about myself, my concerns, my passion, need for connection, intimacy. And you may even, start romanticizing your relationship and all things around your partner, feeling that you are truly prepared to disclose your heart. But in that encounter with your partner, you feel that there is something off there. You feel rejected by him or her. For example, your partner can say something like, you have again started complaining, or no, I cannot talk now, I'm just tired, you just don't understand that I've worked all the day long, and when I get home I want to relax and rest, and don't like to talk about your issues and your boring or childish, problems. And gradually, by repeated of such rejection experiences, you will start feeling odd to be vulnerable and open. But the sad part is that you don't even recognize what the problem is, because you instead start blaming yourself for not performing well and not being good enough. You may feel that you have no sense of being vulnerable and you cannot be connected to yourself. and that you perhaps don't know how to communicate and provide emotional intimacy and safety for your partner, especially if you come from a very vulnerable background where emotional neglecting was practiced against you repeatedly. So you really believe that you have bothered her or him, that it was your fault to not bringing up the appropriate things, or that you don't just understand when it's a good timing to talk and connect, or that you may conclude that you're just a boring performer, boring partner, an actor in your relationship. So the thing that happens through time is that you close your heart and keep quiet. But this is actually a very normal reaction and a protective strategy. Despite looking negative to others, your nervous system has a good reason to function like this, because your system remembers that when you decided to share your concerns and fear, which made you lose sleep several nights, or when you try to share your arguments and how you think and how you feel about an important sensitive problems with your partner, your experience was that you get rejected and ended up concluding that you're useless, or you are incompetent, or not good enough. Because, for example, your partner gave you a silent treatment, or got defensive, or frequently misinterpreted your messages without making an attempt to correct and to make things clear. And then you will naturally learn to be encouraged, or to be encouraged to share less, to keep yourself quiet and detached, because then you will be safe. So the communication goes through a hierarchy across which the level of emotional engagement decreases through time. First, you learn not to sharing your vulnerability and inner emotional needs, and then it's turn for the things that you, based on previous experiences, even feel that they were safe enough to talk about because your partner did not react on those topics. And now perhaps you only share things that you consider them as harmless and safe enough, as they include no elements of emotional engagement, for example daily assignments and routines like shopping and so on. So such subtle experiences trigger a series of learning processes and implicit memory files and associations in your nervous system, such as, if I speak my needs and get vulnerable, he or she will refuse to see me, or will shut down, or get defensive. And there comes the conclusion: it's not worth, it's not worth it being vulnerable. I have tried, but it seems that it's too difficult for me, that I cannot perform it well. So you take distance without wanting this to happen, and you may seem to be distant, cold, or even stubborn. Many people feel also resentment and anger and bitterness after a while, without being able to pin down and really understand the reasons. So you can see how a real authentic need for being vulnerable can get strangulated and make people confused. So my hypothesis is that some people try to compensate and find new ways to become more vulnerable and present in their relationship atmosphere, although their problem is not about the amount of their attempts, because they as individuals and their level of vulnerability is not the problem. They instead need freedom and release from punishment and these bad consequences. They need opportunity to unlearn that response. I suppose that there is a dilemma operating in their mind, because on the one hand, they are eager and need to share and be seen, and on the other hand, they are afraid to do that. So since being assertive enough to show vulnerability and to be acknowledged and seen will cause punishment and rejection, we have always heard that vulnerability and emotional safety are two very important and core elements for a good quality relationship. But vulnerability without existing safety will lead to no intimacy. It will be an abuse, neglect, and maltreatment of your own nervous system. So the emotional shutdown and silence which some people may experience in their relationships does not always and necessarily mean that they are mean and ignorant people who do not care about their partners or other people. We see that sometimes what really happens in silence is totally the opposite story, as the person who seems to be stubborn and emotionally distant or cold is a person who is terrified to be vulnerable and authentic. So I think that it is important to remember that whenever a relationship goes into a performative state, performative modus, that you, for example, feel obligated, forced to perform and make the other person satisfied, it's problematic and a red flag. Because you need a real relationship with an emotionally mature person who do not implicitly force you to be a stranger to yourself so that you start performing or walking on eggshells. You need to find yourself first, because before you try hardly to accommodate yourself into another person's life. I hope that you have found these reflections interesting. Please share it with that friend who probably is disconnected from self and try continuously to perform in the relationship. Thank you for joining. Take care.